Pierce Brown just confirmed that Red God is coming out late 2026. And I'm calling it now. Darrow survives, Pax becomes the Red God, and Sevro kills Lysander with Cassius' knife. So I've spent the last few weeks analyzing Lightbringer for evidence, and the setup is undeniable. Let me show you exactly why I'm right. Quick disclaimer before we dive in. Nothing here is official. It is all just my own research and opinions. There are definitely spoilers in this video, so consider this your heads up. And as always, drop your theories in the comments. Half the fun is hearing your take. So here's what we know for certain. In early 2025, Pierce Brown told the YouTuber Monty Garrett that Red God would most likely release during the summer of 2026. And honestly, it matched the July pattern from Dark Age and Lightbringer. So fans were locked in. But recently, in his podcast appearance, he shifted the timeline. Brown gave a rough guess of sometime late next year, meaning late 2026. More importantly, he has been crystal clear on Instagram. It's a beast. I want it done, but I want to get it right. Lots to tie in and tie up. Many to maim. Many to martyr. This is the same author who scrapped 400 pages of Lightbringer because the vibe wasn't right. Yet again, that decision gave us a masterpiece. So I'm only hoping that he's holding Red God to that exact same standard. So we're talking October, November of 2026 at the earliest, but I think it could possibly just slip into 2027. Brown did confirm that it is the longest book in the series. And there has been some speculation that the publisher might split it into 2 volumes, but the author explicitly said he didn't want that. We've seen this before in George R.R. Martin's A Feast for Crows situation. This could happen because so far we know that Red God is tracking to have over 250,000 words. At least that's been based on Brown's comments. So that's 800 to 900 pages in a hardcover format. Many publishers do have hard limits on this, 800 pages, just because of the binding costs and shelf display. So if the manuscript does end up becoming more than 900 pages, the publisher might just force Brown into 2 volumes. Or the alternative would be to cut content, which after waiting for so long, no fan really wants. But now that I just gave you all those facts, that's not guaranteed to happen. Del Rey published Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, and that was over 1,200 pages. So publishers can do it if they want to. And Brown has leverage. I'm giving them already multiple bestsellers, and he has a rabid fan base. So these publishers know that this book is definitely going to sell regardless of the price point. I would just do what the author says. So I think we're getting quality over speed. And after all the previous books, I trust that process. Let's talk about my theory as to why I think Darrow survives. Because most fans, I've noticed, are thinking that he's going to die a martyr. They point to Fitchner's message to Sevro. Fortune ain't those who conceive revolution. The generation that lights the fuse usually gets buried in the rubble. So they see Darrow as a tragic hero destined for sacrifice. And so I admit that the evidence for this is definitely strong. I mean, Ragnar died protecting Darrow. Cassius died saving him. So the pattern kind of suggests that Darrow is next, and his death could be the final ultimate sacrifice that cements the Republic's victory. And there's also the classical tragedy angle. Darrow is a warrior of unmatched skill, doomed by his own nature. He can't stop fighting. Typically, characters like this don't get happy endings in literature. They get glorious, devastating deaths, and it echoes through history. And let's be honest, Brown has killed beloved characters before. He does not shy away from that topic. Lauren O. Arkos died in Morning Star. Priam, who finally found redemption, died in Lightbringer. Cassius, the golden boy, was murdered. So yeah, Brown doesn't shy away from tragedy. So why do I think Darrow could be safe? I think that Pierce Brown spent the back half of Lightbringer systematically dismantling the Darrow must die narrative through the path to the veil philosophy. This isn't a throwaway concept. I think it's the thematic backbone to his arc in Book 6. Darrow has been taught that warriors find peace beyond endless war. Cassius, who spent books consumed in vengeance, found his path to the Veil by choosing love and sacrifice over hatred. Diomedes, the Storm Knight, shows Darrow that honor does not require bloodshed. Now let's look at specific textual evidence. In Lightbringer, Darrow explicitly tells Virginia, "I'm tired, love. I've been fighting for 15 years. I want to see our son grow up. I want to walk our valley without a razor on my hip." This is the first time in the entire saga Darrow has articulated a desire for peace over victory. So I don't think that could be a setup for his death. That could be a setup for his retirement. I might be too optimistic because that could make his death hurt more, which authors tend to like to do in fiction. But something important to know is that I think killing Darrow sends the wrong thematic message. It says that violence is an unbreakable cycle, and that men like him can never escape it. After 6 books of Darrow fighting for a better world, denying him the chance to live in that world kind of feels cruel and nihilistic. But letting him live can prove the series' core thesis, that warriors can lay down their razors and build instead of destroy. Think about the Cinicittadus parallel. Cinicittadus was the Roman leader who was given absolute power to save Rome from an invasion, and he won the war in 16 days. But then he immediately resigned and returned to his farm. He proved that power doesn't have to corrupt. I think that's Darrow's arc. His deepest desire has never been a throne. It's a quiet life with Virginia and Pax in the valley. I don't think the revolution has ever been about Darrow becoming king. It's about creating a world where people could live free. And I think the title in of itself can support this interpretation. Darrow becomes a living legend who walks away from power, the god that chooses mortality. He will break the cycle by refusing to be consumed by it. I think that's the ending Pierce Brown has been building and watches his son build the future that he bled for. So Darrow lives, but then if he's not the Red God, who is? Well, my answer reframes the entire series. And I think it's been hiding in plain sight since Iron Gold. Pax is the living embodiment of the dream. He's colorless, sharing his mother's strategic brilliance and his father's battlefield instincts in equal measure. We saw his talent at the Academy in Lightbringer, where he's already a legend among his peers. I think he represents the generation that builds from the rubble. So here's the symbolic power. Darrow is a red that came from gold to lead to the revolution. He had to carve himself, hide his identity, and infiltrate the enemy to win. Pax is red and gold by birth. He doesn't need to pretend or transform. He is the unified future. And the Red God title works perfectly for him. Not as a warrior god, like his father, but as a unifying symbol for a new age. He carries the legacy of both colors. He represents hope instead of vengeance. Every major beat in Pax's storyline has been preparation for leadership. His capture by the Society wasn't just a plot device, but his education into the enemy's mindset and why they would never change voluntarily. His training at the Academy is even more explicit. We see him excel in strategy, combat, leadership, and that combination makes him more dangerous. And here's what would make Pax the perfect Red God. He understands cost in a way that Darrow's generation could not. Darrow grew up in the mines, then immediately went to war. He's known nothing but oppression and violence his entire life. Pax grew up in the Republic. He has seen what his parents built. He has also seen it nearly destroyed several times. He knows that freedom is fragile, and the real work is not just winning the war. Maintaining peace afterward is the hard part. There could also be a beautiful thematic parallel here. Darrow's revolution was inspired by Eo's sacrifice. She died so he would rise. Now Darrow gets to live to see Pax rise. The cycle of sacrifice breaks. This father doesn't have to die to see his son succeed. I want to address the counter-argument. Some fans think that Lyra should be the Red God because she represents the low colors that Darrow fought for. And I get the appeal, but I don't think it works structurally. Lyra's arc is more about personal liberation, not systematic leadership. She is being set up to represent ordinary people who benefit from the Republic. really to lead it. The Red God has to be someone who can unite all the colors. Someone who embodies the future rather than the past. Pax is that person. He's the bridge between the red and the gold, between war and peace. The Red Rising saga started with a son inspired by his wife's death. It ends with a father watching his son rise. That's closure. So now I've gotten to the most satisfying prediction. I think Severo delivers the killing blow, using the knife he took from Cassius's quarters. I think the setup is perfect. The knife has history. It's the same blade that Dara used to kill Octavia, and Severo took it after Cassio's murder. So the poetic justice of Lysander dying by the same weapon that killed his grandmother, wielded by the goblin in revenge for Cassius. And I think that's exactly the kind of symmetry that Brown loves. Lysander's downfall is guaranteed. He murdered Cassius, the most beloved character in the fandom. He's a self-righteous monster who thinks he's restoring honor while committing genocide. So his death is not a question of if, but really how brutal. So here's how I see it playing out. Dara defeats Lysander in combat, breaking him physically and philosophically. Lysander realizes in that moment that everything he believed was a lie. The society isn't noble. The gods aren't superior. He's not a hero. He's a murderer who destroyed the solar system for his own ego. Instead of delivering the final blow himself, I think Dara steps aside. Severo, carrying Cassius's knife, gets the kill. It's revenge, yes, but also symbolic. Could Lysander be betrayed? Possibly. Atlantia is a viper waiting to strike. Apollonius is pure chaos wrapped in gold armor. Either could turn on him, especially when they realize that he's losing. But I do think those endings lack the emotional weight of Severo's vengeance. Brown understands catharsis. After Lightbringer, after watching Cassius die, protecting the people he loved, we've earned this moment. I think the fandom needs to see Severo look him in the eyes and make him pay. Lysander won't die nobly. He won't get a warrior's death or a philosophical final speech. We want him to die screaming and begging. Perhaps Lysander is not even going to see Severo coming. In Lightbringer, we can see his fatal flaw. He's so obsessed with Dara. He ignores everyone else. He literally calls Severo the Reaper's pet goblin. So Red God arrives late in 2026. And I have these 3 predictions locked in for now. So there's another question people are asking. Does Dara deserve to retire after all the blood he's shed? Or does he owe the Republic his life? Because there is an uncomfortable truth. Dara has killed thousands. He's made decisions that's gotten entire fleets destroyed. He has sacrificed friends, allies, in a sense, for victory. So does a body count that high earn you a peaceful retirement? I'm sure that's a debate and that everybody's got their textual evidence. I'll see you in the next one.